So here's the question of the day. What happens after you get that alert from your market surveillance system that you potentially have a problem? Well, I'm joined today by Bill Nosal from Nasdaq OMX to talk about that exact topic. So Bill, my question to you is, what should folks be looking at when they get these alerts? 1 alert, 5 alert, 1,000 alerts. What should they be doing?
The key thing that people do after they get a market surveillance alert is they want to go and investigate that particular alert. And a key mechanism for doing that is going and potentially reviewing the underlying data itself, or reviewing any communications that might have gone on around that particular alert.
I mean, in today's market, you've got electronic communications, you've got text, you've got voice, you've got email, you've got chat rooms, you've got all these various, maybe different modes of communication. Isn't that a daunting and somewhat expensive task to start investigating for every alert you get?
It is, but some firms do have at least a policy or a procedure that says if there's a certain type of alert, especially things around insider trading, that you should make a reasonable effort to go and look and see if that information exists or if there's related information somewhere else in the organization. The key part of what the analyst has to do is disposition the alert properly so that when the examiner comes in months or years later, they can go back and show conclusively how they handled that alert and what they found or what they didn't find.
But isn't that task now pretty much a labor-intensive task of one individual starting to search all these databases and going through all these emails and going through all these chat room files? There's got to be a better way of doing that than just unleashing raw manpower on this daunting task, especially if you have a large organization with hundreds, if not thousands of traders.
That's right. So we've relied on technology to generate the alerts. We've relied on technology to gather all the communications, to actually do the communications. So now there's actually ways to rely on technology to bring together that information. So my question is what is that technology, and how can I get my hands on it, and is it going to bankrupt me? Yeah, so it shouldn't bankrupt you because there's technologies out there that can do some advanced searching of the communications itself. And we think that bringing the information from the trade surveillance alert directly into that interface, providing information about the trader, about the date, about the security or instrument that was involved, is really a data input to some of these other technologies. And one that we're really excited about is a company called Catalyst. Now, Catalyst is effectively a relationship forensics or people governance kind of entity. And what they care about is not so much the content of all that communications. What they care about is who's talking to who or whom. By giving an engine like Catalyst certain inputs and certain information, you can very quickly narrow down all those communications from all those disparate channels into a diagram.
So basically, it's network mapping and network analysis. So you're looking at a given individual and their relationships and their communication patterns, and using that to narrow down what may be potentially a challenging area. Is that correct?
That's right. The notion of building a relationship map is not simply about how many times I emailed you or texted you or whatever. There's a lot more that has to go into the algorithms that truly derive the strength of a relationship. In other words, I can send you 1,000 emails, but if you don't reply back to me, we're not having a conversation. You're just sort of a recipient. I could be spamming you. But the ability to actually go through and figure out the different mechanisms that determine our relationship and say that our relationship is particularly strong or my relationship with somebody else in the room is particularly weak, that would allow the compliance person to at least make a reasonable effort to go in and look at those particular communications quickly.
So this technology is not just about sort of relationship mapping, it also could be sentiment analysis and communication analysis to actually look at sort of the actual bonds that exist and not just the frequency of the communication.
Yeah, what's interesting is in applying a technology like this, not only are you able to do analysis of the particular alerts, it becomes a discovery tool for you as well. And you can learn all kinds of other things about your employees, about your traders, just based on their communication patterns.
This sounds to be a significantly more effective mechanism than just being overloaded by just countless alerts and sort of sampling the alerts to decide which you're going to go after or which you're not.
That's right. And what's interesting is this technology sort of comes out of the e-discovery world. E-discovery typically takes place after a problem has been identified. Now it's a matter of calling in the attorneys to do the searches to help further determine what was known around that particular problem. So the idea here is that you can move that technology use up further in the equation. You have the basic communications that are recorded in your archive, at least some firms do, and you may even have alerts on them, and you have your trade surveillance alerts. So why not create a bridge between those two things and proactively give information to the trade analyst that says, hey, not only do you have an insider trading alert here or a watch trading alert, but you also have a map of the linkage between that trader and that counterparty, and can very quickly and proactively get to those communications without going and doing a search.
Is this a technology that we're seeing pretty much being implemented with just the largest bulge bracket brokers, or the people with the deep pockets, or is it something that we're seeing, across the board, or maybe even the smaller folks who maybe have a smaller footprint and less volume?
Yeah, you would think it would be the bulge firms that would be doing that, and certainly there are firms there that choose to be on the leading edge of things like this. But it's interesting to us that we're seeing feedback from the smaller firms, as well as especially the buy side and the hedge fund firms, who have a much more manageable universe of information, and consequently the technologies, while efficient on a large scale, are even more efficient on a small scale. In hedge funds these days, there's been so many newsworthy events, SAC Capital, whatever, that really is prompting them to say, we really have to get our arms around this. We don't want to be the next ones to go down that path, and we certainly don't want the owners of the firms to be implicated in certain things. So they are more proactively taking on technologies like this and putting it on top of their information.
Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us here on the forum. I think this is a really sort of interesting and fascinating topic, and I'm glad to see that folks are actually starting to look at what they're going to do after they get all these alerts and actually how to manage that. So Bill, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.